Thank you all for joining. My name is Kim Porter. I'm the Executive Director of Be a Part of the Conversation. I'm really happy that you're with us and happy holidays to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Well, thank you. I just have a couple of slides. We're going to go slideless tonight. I'm really big on PowerPoints, but tonight we're going to keep it very casual. You're going to hear from four of us to start off, but I just want to get started by telling you, if you don't know about Be a Part of the Conversation, been around since 2011. Tonight we're able to be with you thanks to support from one of our many community partners, which is the Department of Drug and Alcohol Services at Chester County, Pennsylvania. So thank you so much to them for their continued amazing support. We also have these amazing parent partnership meetings, and we're going to hear from one person tonight who is, I'm another one actually, who's a parent partnership leader. Our meetings take place throughout the year, 5 days a week. We have 22 meetings every week. About half of them take place on Zoom, and the other half take place in person. And that means in southeastern Pennsylvania, as well as New Jersey and Delaware. We're up in the Lehigh Valley a little bit too. So lots of options for you. But again, lots on Zoom. We have 3 Zoom meetings every week through Parent Partnership that are specifically for adolescents and young adults. So I wanted to make that point because that is a unique population. Of course, if you're the parent of an adolescent or young adult, you're welcome to any of the meetings and you'll find lots of peers there as well. But we do have 3 that are specific to that population. And I apologize for my voice. I had this thing going on with my throat for a few days, so I might cough. I apologize in advance for that. Also, the family recovery course, these are all free, by the way. All of our services and programs are free to attend and participate in. The family recovery course is a 3-part course that really focuses on us, the parent, the guardian, the grandparent, in that parental role who has a child of any age with a substance use disorder, whether they're in recovery or not, wherever they are in their journey and your journey. I know that you can join us. We have 2 instructors for each course who are peers like me who have been through a lot of extensive training on this. You get curriculum, you get a manual shipped to you. Mostly they're virtual. We have some in person. We cap this at 12, so it stays nice and intimate and personal. But I hope that you'll take a look at that if you think it might be of help. Again, there's no charge to attend, regardless of where you live. So I'm really excited about our panel tonight. You're going to hear from me just for a little wee bit, and then we're going to talk with Sherry Cowan, and we have a family member's perspective, another family member's perspective, that would be Michelle, and so grateful to have a person in recovery, that would be Rob, because we know that that's where a lot of our heads are, is thinking about our loved ones who have a substance use disorder. And so hearing that personal experience and kind of how each of us navigates all of this stuff is really helpful, I think. So lots of good perspectives here tonight, I think, and then we're really going to look forward to hearing from all of you. And I also want to apologize because I know typically when you register for our programs, you automatically get an email sent to you that has the Zoom link. For some reason, and I double checked it, it looks like it should be working fine, but for some reason, at least in the last 24 to 36 hours, people weren't getting that email automatically sent to them. So hopefully, obviously, if you're here, you found the link and you got it sent to you by Bob Lamb, our Director of Programs and Operations. But glad you're here, and apologies for any inconvenience. So I'll just tell a little bit about what my perspective is. I've been attending support parent partnership meetings and doing this work for 14 years now. That was my son found recovery, thank goodness, 14 and a half years ago. And so I've heard a lot of stories, and this time of year is always challenging. And I'll tell you just a little bit about my experience. My son was 21 at the time that he got into treatment and found recovery. And that was in March of 2010. And that fall, that Thanksgiving, and throughout the season, I was really worried because I was hearing from my parent partnership meeting, it's a scary time. There's a lot of return to use or relapse. And so that's the thing that we family members are so afraid of, is that there's going to be that return to use if they're in fact in recovery. And so we might have white knuckles, they might have white knuckles. We might be way overthinking things. We might be thinking that I have to make the holidays perfect because it's so important to my child when it actually may not be all that important to them. And something I've shared in the past on this program is that I remember my son's second Thanksgiving in recovery. He was still living up in the Poconos where he got sober in that area. He was with all of his sober friends. They were deep frying a turkey, which I had no part of, and he had a blast. And so I think it's kind of almost charming that we think that they're so worried about coming and being with us and having this nostalgic holiday that they always had, when maybe, depending on their age, they're kind of ready to have their own stuff going on. And so I want to respect that and honor that, especially if somebody is in recovery and they want to be with other sober people. Perhaps it's challenging to be around people who are drinking or using substances in moderation. That could be even harder than somebody who's got a problem with it because they're saying like, I want to do that. So that can be really challenging too. But I was way overthinking things. And I remember one of those first holidays, and this could also be like a wedding, by the way, or a birthday celebration, but we're talking about the holidays here because of the time of year that it is. I remember saying to my son, like, are you okay with going to, it was his dad's cousin's house where we went every year for Thanksgiving. And he said, unless they pass around a blunt, I should be fine. And that was definitely not going to happen. But there was a lot of wine there and nobody there was drinking alcoholically, but I had a lousy night because I was so laser focused on where every bottle of wine was in its proximity to my son, as if that was going to be the thing that made him pick up, not life and driving past. Now we have like vape shops on every corner and liquor stores on every corner, all that kind of stuff. But I was so worried about that I had a miserable night because all I could think about was of my fears about him picking up again, using again. And so sometimes we need to kind of let go of what we think is so precious, this nostalgic, idyllic holiday setting, and do something totally differently. Maybe not with our loved one with a substance use disorder. Maybe not what we do every year. Maybe it's that we do some volunteering. Maybe it's that we just do something, go to a nursing home or something like that, just something completely different. And that's okay. Sometimes we find something that's really exciting and never thought of doing before. We're going to talk, I'm sure, at some point, if we don't get to it with our presenters, we'll talk about it on the other end. But decisions about whether or not to have alcohol around, because it is so ubiquitous, it is so a part of things. We don't necessarily want to impose on a host, like, for example, if we went to this family member's house who always hosted and say, like, by the way, you can't have any wine this year. Yes, that's not okay, right? That's not okay for us to say. If we need to change our dynamic, we change our dynamic, not somebody else, another family's dynamic. So we don't want to necessarily become prohibitionists with everybody around us and trust our loved one. I'm anxious to hear from Rob, to hear like, I know a lot of times our loved ones will say like, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. But are they saying that to placate us? Or do they really mean that it's not going to be a problem for them? My throat's really kicking in. So I'm going to cut it a little short and ask Sherry to pick up because I can feel it's coming. Thanks, Sherry. My apologies.
No worries. I just put a cough drop in. I should be good. I have a cough too. So my apologies if I'm sipping on some water in between. Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry Cowan. I work as a family support specialist for a company called Thrive Advocacy. And I work with parents of kids struggling with adoption and addiction challenges. So I come to you not only as a professional, but as the mother of somebody who struggles with addiction. And my husband is in long-time recovery as well. He's, I think we're almost at 19 years that he's been in recovery. And so our household, we thought would run a little differently because we had that recovery under our belt, and come to find out, not so much. So it kind of really threw us into a different level of work, right? There's work to be done around spouses and marriage. And then when it becomes your child, whew, all of a sudden, everything we knew went out the window, and our fear and our sadness and grief, everything was just kind of running the show. So I work with parents now to help settle them and help them understand how to navigate the holidays, in addition to the rest of the year, but certainly around the holidays. Like, how do we take care of ourselves? right? It's the time of year where, take addiction out of the picture, where people are overextended, right? There a lot of times at work, it's year-end things that kind of are coming into play. It's an overabundance of invites or not, right? Because maybe we've had some substance challenges in the past and we stop getting invites, right? So there's a lot of things that we need to look at, but I think the most important thing for me that I tell my parents that has worked for me is self-care, right? And I know, listen, I'm all for the manicure and the bubble bath. I think that's great, and the massage. However, when we look at true self-care, what does that look like for us? I tell parents, comparison is the thief of joy, right? So do we get off of social media, right? I had to take breaks for years to get off of social media because I was seeing, especially at the holidays, hashtag blessed, right? Where the family's all together and I was making assumptions that everything was perfect in their life. And what was wrong with my family, like, brought up a lot of shame for me, a lot of sadness. So I, I tell parents, if you need to take that break, take it, right? Delete the apps, right? Shut it down. It's not going anywhere. You can jump back on later if you need to. We often talk about not opening our cards, not opening our Christmas cards. I was like, oh my gosh, can you imagine sending the letter of, yeah, we've spent the year going in and out of rehab and to family recovery courses. And, like that's my letter, right? Nobody wants to hear that. Well, I think all of you would want to hear that, which would actually, maybe I should get some addresses. But I had to really stop opening some of the cards. I opened them after the new year, right? I took really good care of myself because it was hard to see sometimes, right? And then I had to ask myself, is this real, what I'm seeing, right? There's a photo. Is it real? We've all taken photos, right? I have some of my best family photos. There's been cursing in the background. Pay attention, focus, smile. I don't care if you're miserable, smile for the camera, right? So I have to remember that people are having a human experience as well as I am. I tell parents a lot of times, double up on your support, double up on therapy, right? Double up for your parent partnership meetings. Don't go to one for around those couple weeks around Christmas, go to a couple, right? I think, we're later in the holiday season, but this is a fantastic week to pick up a cancellation for a therapy appointment. People get busy, they wind up canceling last minute. I get on the cancellation list if I haven't made my appointments ahead, just so that I can get in there and process a little bit and get some of my sadness out, or maybe anger, right? Different years, it's been different things. So I tell parents, take good care of yourselves. Go to Al-Anon. If you go to one meeting, hit two, right? Hit parent partnership, Al-Anon, therapy, whatever support looks like for you. But we would never tell somebody when they're struggling, like, hey, cut back on all your support, right? But it's the thing that we do. We were like, oh, I can't go to that. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. That's when we really need to take a look at it. And I think a morning routine is super important. Before I get out of bed in the morning, I this morning, hand on my heart and hand on my belly, and I'm like, what do I need today? What do I need? Right? Not what do I want, but what do I need? And I tell parents a lot of times, listen to yourself, right? It's the first thing that comes to your mind. And the first thing I thought of this morning was reduce overwhelm. I am overwhelmed. Anytime I had little, I'm sorry, Kim, do you want to take the waiting room back? Anytime I had a space in my calendar today, I blocked it out. I needed to breathe, right? It's still hard in our family. We're not in a great place. So that's how I can take care of myself. And I tell parents, think about what you need. Do you need joy? What does joy look like? Right? Is joy going to that party, but setting yourself up for a Christmas exchange or a cookie party, whatever it may be, men's get together, right? Is that what you need? And can you say, like, hey, to a good friend, hey, I don't want to talk about my kids today, my son today, my daughter today, right? I'm here because I need some joy. right? I think when we can take care of ourselves and really ask for what we need, people tend to honor it. So, again, in the morning routine, not only asking yourself, what do you need, but how about some readings, right? The language of letting go is like my Bible. I have a tattered and torn book, and I sit down every morning, and that is what grounds me in that work. And I tell parents, what works for you. It might be going out for a run, right? It might be listening to great music. Whatever you need to kind of honor what you're feeling is how you should be taking care of yourself. I know a lot of times when parents are struggling, they ask the question like, well, how do we handle the actual days? They're okay with the days leading up to the holiday. Then the actual holiday comes and it's, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And they're like, how do we handle it? I'm like, get ahead of it. Get ahead of it. Talk to your kids. Ask them, how can I support you best? What do you need from us? Right? I made a lot of assumptions when my son was first in recovery, that we should stop drinking. Right? And we're not big drinkers, but my family is. And so I went down to, my parents live in our neighborhood. We went down for Thanksgiving one year and I didn't drink. And my son said to me later, Mom, you not drinking spotlights me. It spotlights me because now everyone's like, why is Sherry not drinking? Why can't Sherry have a glass of wine? Right? He goes, I don't want that. So I said, how do I support you? And he's like, have that glass of wine. He said, it's normal. Be normal. And we're not a big drinking immediate family. So to have a glass of wine and then kind of move on is okay. Right. And then I said to him, what does it look like for you? Do you want to go early? Do we want to stay late for the dinners, for the family gatherings? And giving him permission. You take care of you. If you want to leave and you want us to go with you, we're in. We have to remember that we got to park at the end of the driveway. That's another form of self-care, right? We don't need 16 cars that we need to move so that everybody knows we're leaving, right? But how can you as parents take care of yourselves with your children, right? Like, and say to them, I support you. What do you need from us? What does that look like? And then I think it's important to talk to your partner, right? Oftentimes parents aren't always on the same page, right? And sometimes it's hard, right? One is like absolutely no alcohol, or and one is like, oh, I'm okay with it, and then sometimes parents are resentful. One is like absolutely no alcohol. Another one could be, I'm resentful that my life has to change. And I pass along what was said to me. If my child had cancer and was going through cancer treatment, was going through chemotherapy, everybody shaves their head. Everyone does the first time. But the second time, it's up to the child, right? Right there, they lose their hair. We're not shaving our heads. So how do we talk to our children and say, hey, we want to support you in not drinking, not using, right? But after a year or so, it's their job to manage their recovery. And if they are working a recovery program, they have that support. And they'll tell you, like, get out of my lane. And we have to honor that. Oh, I know what I was going to say. When parents aren't always on the same page, it's hard to have hard conversations, right? And so we came up with a code word in our family, or code phrase. It's, I want to have a hard conversation. Do you have open ears to hear it? And if my spouse does not have the capacity at that point, or he's had a long day or a hard day, or he's just too emotional, I have to honor that. And then we say, okay, when can we get together? And vice versa. I don't want to talk at the end of a really long day because I don't always come with my best self, but I'm certainly glad to talk in the morning after I have coffee. Right. And and really be open. When I say I'm coming with open ears, that means I can hear you. I can hear your concerns, your wants, your needs, and I want you to hear mine. And how do we get to a place where we can honor each other? And so it's a lot of give and take. It's a lot of give and take, and we have to ask each other, are we operating out of fear? Right? I hear you. And I want to challenge you. Is that your fear talking, or is that you talking? If it's you talking, I'm in. But if it's your fear talking, let's see how we can reduce each other's fear. And then I think, we really need to sit with ourselves and ask, what is most important? What do I need? Do I need to be at a family function? My family, the functions are like 10 hours. It doesn't end, right? Do I need that? Or do I need to come and stay for a portion of it and take care of myself? Right? What do I need? Do I need joy? Do I need peace? What does peace look like? But really, it takes some time to sit and get quiet, right? Peace for me is no chaos, right? How can I create that? How can I minimize the chaos? So I talk to parents a lot about, what do you need? Our kids, when they're in, whether they're in early recovery or they've got some years, they're working their program. We have to ask ourselves, are we working ours? And that comes with a lot of managing our own expectations, right? I have different things come up at different times. There have been times that I had expectations that people would ask how my son is doing when we were at a family gathering at a holiday. And when they didn't, I was crushed, right? There were times I went into a family function and I was like, I had the expectation that everybody knew it was a shit show. Please don't ask. And that wasn't always the case, right? So I had to my husband and I came up with a line. And I tell parents all the time, you come up with your phrase, right? One of mine is, hey, if somebody says to me, hey, how's your son doing? I can say, if I don't want to talk about it, I say to them, hey, I'm just here to celebrate everybody and be with everybody. I don't want to talk about that tonight, but please, if you really want to know, give me a call in a couple of weeks. I'd be happy to fill you in. It's shocking to me how many phone calls I don't get, right? At the family function, everybody wants to know what's going on. But man, when we leave that, the phone isn't ringing off the hook to see how we're doing. So that's my line. I tell parents, come up with what works for you, but I kind of go in prepared, right? Because it's hard. And I don't function well when my lid is flipped, when my frontal lobe isn't engaged and I'm in fight or flight. I don't usually have great comebacks. So I try and get ahead of it a little bit and just store a couple in my back pocket if needed. And then when we talk about managing expectations, what do we know, right? Like the only expectation we can manage is our own, right? And if we set the expectation so high for our children and for our other family members and they don't meet it, they're not let down. We are. So how do we manage that? How do we know that we can't control them, right? How do we remind ourselves when we're sad, when we're angry, when we're resentful, that we can't control them? We can only control ourselves. A saying that came to me that I thought was phenomenal was, I want to read it so I don't make a mistake. Expectation beyond capability is the creation of shame. I'll say it again. Expectation beyond capability is the creation of shame. So if I put the expectation on myself that I am going to create this wonderful holiday because my son was struggling for 4 years, and guess what? Dun, 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 like we're gonna have a holiday beyond all holidays, and I have nothing in the tank because I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm scared, right? And I don't have the capacity for that. What does that bring up in me? Shame, right? What kind of person are you? Why can't you get it together? What's wrong with you? People have worse stuff than you. Why can't you get it together? Why can't you show up and be happy? Your kid's sober. What's wrong with you? Why are you afraid? All those feelings start to come up, right? So I know that underneath perfectionism, me trying to make sure the house is perfect and the gifts are perfect and the Christmas holiday or the New Year's, whatever it may be, Hanukkah, is perfect. Underneath that, underneath perfectionism, shame is always lurking. So I tell my parents often, check yourselves, just check in and say, am I doing this does it have to be perfect? Or can we lower the bar a little bit and give ourselves some grace? Trying to think of anything else that I didn't hit. Oh, I know. Music is always it's like near and dear to my heart. So I created a different playlist, right? I have one for my sad Christmas stuff. When I need a good cry, I put it on and I let it out. And I tell parents, honor your emotions. If you're sad, have a good cry. I have a really good friend of mine who, when I call her for support, she's like, well, sounds like you need a really good cry before you go into that meeting or you go into that household. And I have to honor that, right? And I do. Once you can cry it out, it's like a release, right? Or guess what? There are times that I'm angry, I'm frustrated, that things aren't going the way I expected, right? And I sing and scream at the top of my lungs. So like music that is a little more charged, right? And it settles me. It really does. So honor yourselves, take care of yourselves, and check in with what do you need? Our kids are working their programs. We have to work ours. All righty, I'm going to pass back to you, Kim.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Beautiful job.
You're welcome.
And you've touched on a lot of really important things. I appreciate it. Michelle, are you ready to jump in? And you're muted.
Now I'm ready to jump in. Thanks, Kim, and thank you, Sherry. So I'm Michelle King. I do run the parent partnership meeting in Princeton. We started about a year ago, and always looking for new members. So anybody who lives up in Central Jersey, please feel free to join us on any Monday night. So my daughter, I guess the first holiday that we knew about her drinking was her sophomore year of college. We were still kind of mystified by it. She's a kid who in high school, very perfectionist with her athletics and her academic work, and was on record for saying a lot of times that anybody who uses substance is stupid. Why would they do it? It's bad for your body. So we were just kind of wondering, is this just normal college drinking or not? And it took us a little while to sort that out. So during those holidays when things were really fuzzy, Emily would spend time by herself, or when she was with us, she kind of looked pretty grumpy. Emily has two older sisters and two younger sisters. And the two younger sisters are the ones that have been really affected. They were 12 and 14 when she started using as a sophomore. Things obviously escalated. And her mode was never drink in front of us or in front of anybody. But once everybody went to bed at night, that's when things would get really bad. So a lot happened in the middle of the night, and during these times when she was home from college, Christmas break, it was, as I said, mystified us. Why is she, hungover the next day and she didn't drink anything, and what's going on and where, so pieces of the puzzle were right in front of us, but we couldn't really put them together. As time went on, she started in rehab at the age of 20. No, just turned 21. And again, her sisters were at that point 14 and 16. So we're now, we've got middle schoolers moving into high school. And Emily's behavior was erratic, not anything that they knew how to deal with. We didn't know how to deal with it either. We allowed her in the house when she was out of control. And again, most of her crazy behaviors were happening in the middle of the night. My thinking was that if I looked down the hall and both of their bedroom doors were closed, then they didn't know a thing and all was safe in the world. Well, that's not true. They tell me now that oftentimes they would go from one room to the other and stay together when all this was going on. So this does lead us to sort of some of our problems with holidays right now. Emily is, it's 2024. She just celebrated 5 years in recovery 3 days ago. Is her sober date, December 14th. She lives out in California. That's where she went in her addiction and did find recovery out there. And since she initially went to rehab 5 years ago, she's been home a handful of times. Well, she's been home a little bit more. But when she does come home, the younger two aren't around. And we've coordinated that. So they've seen her at weddings and funerals, and they see her at Christmas time every year. Other than that, they can avoid her. So how did I handle this? Emily's first year, when she was out in California and not sober, partially sober, it was unclear. She was still leading a very reckless life, living in a sober living house in California. And she said, "Please, can I come home for Christmas?" And that was our first dilemma. She was not, at this point, we've had a few years behind our belt, and we said, no, this isn't really healthy for us to have her in the house. And we still weren't great at saying no to her. But that was kind of one of the first times when it really became clear to us that we can't do that. So we said, no, you have to, you'll be in California. We're not paying for you to fly home. There was some relief by doing that. A load off, getting past that point of having a hard time saying no. Once we did it, boy, it really felt like it was the right thing. And we kind of felt a little proud of ourselves for finally now trying to do something to keep those younger two safe. Yes, it wouldn't have been a good thing to have her at home. In that year, she did find the beginnings of her recovery, and her first Christmas after that was during COVID. We planned to have her come home at the last minute. She did have a job in a recovery program, and they said, you can't leave your job and go home. If you come back, you need 2 weeks before you can come to work. And she said, I can't afford to do that. So she's starting to think a little more clearly now, too. However, without knowing that, we desperately wanted her home. She's now in recovery. It's got to be safe. It's got to be safe for her to be home. Why not? What damage? So we told our two younger children, she's coming home, and you're going to have to deal with it. And that didn't go well. And then this is the beginning when we started to hear from them what their experience was like over the past 4 or 5 years with her at home. And what happens to them when they think about her and see her. And that was pretty hard to listen to. So we backed off of that, and we negotiated a midpoint. And it seemed like their line in the sand was that she can't sleep here. And now we sort of understand it, because that's when all the craziness happened. So that Christmas, she did come home. She stayed with my sister, but came to our house for Christmas Eve dinner. There was a little bit of a blow up that night. Her emotions were, she couldn't handle it, had to run out of the room. The two younger ones said, there she goes being dramatic again, drawing all this attention to her. She does it all the time. Mom's going to get upset. There she goes again. Got through that Christmas. Since then, my husband and I have learned a little bit more about what siblings experience by listening to them and by getting some information from others and from professionals in our own, sort of personal work. And their experience. I think we're in a period of time where we're sort of reevaluating what is trauma and what behaviors are entitled to use those words, or what reactions. And from what we're coming to understand is that it's a personal experience, and at least one of the two is responding more like trauma than the other one, but the other one has some of that as well. So the next piece of advice is we got to start working with our younger two to respect that they need some time to heal from this trauma, and that the trauma was real, and that there's a lot there was a lot of yelling and screaming in the house. My husband and I were arguing with each other. Anytime Emily was around, it was just upheaval, whether she was drinking or not. And that just kind of lives in them. So the thought of her being here, it still ignites them. They're 19 and 21 now. We're keeping things status quo this Christmas, but we're looking towards trying to make some changes, perhaps by next Christmas. So at the time that they were in that middle school, high school period, they're now reaching adult, close to adult. They're sophomore and senior in high school, in college. So Emily still doesn't stay here at night. So how does that work with Emily and I now? Emily says, Mom, Dad, why are you allowing this? Why are you letting them run the show here? I don't feel like I belong here. I'm not included. So it's just this real balancing act, tending to the one side and tending to the other, and never getting it right on either side, never being able to fully give to both of them, to both of the sides. And it's taken me a lot of time to work with this, but I would say this is the first Christmas where I'm starting not to feel okay with it, but to accept that this is the nature of our family. This is the problem that we have, and I do believe and hope that it will change sometime. I can't pick the date, but when we told Emily again, what's the deal this Christmas, she said, you're always welcome home, but you're still going to stay with your aunt. And she said, I can't also, I'm sort of held from divulging to her what their experiences were. That's for them to, when they ever get to this point where they can talk, that's for them to share with Emily, for Emily to listen to it, and for Emily to sit with it. So, I feel just tied up when I'm, talking with any of them. But this is the first Christmas where I'm just starting to say that's it. That's kind of where we are. So my expectations have changed, that I'm not looking for the family Christmas that we once had, and I'm okay with the Christmas we're gonna get. It still is nice when she does sit at Christmas Eve dinner. All 5 of our daughters are around the table together. That's only happened, maybe 4 times in the past, 5-6 years. So there's something enjoyable in that for me. I just kind of look at each of their faces, and it's not it's no Hallmark movie because I don't even know what's going inside each of them. Um, you know, anger from both sides. I can't believe those two. I know people, this is from Emily's perspective. I know people who tore up their family much worse than I did, and they've been welcomed back. Why? Yeah. So Emily has her journey, her work. I have mine, and the younger two are gonna start being asked to do some of that work. But I look back now and say it wasn't the time when they were 15, 16, 17, 18 for them to be doing that work, but we're going to ask them. So that's kind of, as far as having alcohol or not, we relied on Emily since she was in California and wasn't home a lot. The first time she was home, we asked her what she wanted, and she said, "I'm very nervous about coming home again. I want you to take everything out of the house." And that was easy. The next time she came home, she was now over a year in recovery. And we said, "What do you want?" She said, "I'm okay with it." And it's similar to what Sherry mentioned, and I've heard from other families, oftentimes, the son or daughter with the addiction says, "Please don't put that spotlight on me if we just keep things normal." So we relied on her, and if she was okay with it. So at the time, she had also moved into an apartment with two normies, is what she calls them, and they occasionally would have wine at home. So she had some experience. Her initial concern was that the first time I come home, it's going to be so upsetting and jarring to me. I don't know if I can handle it. But beyond that, she was at a place where she could say, "I'm okay. I'm okay, and I don't want to be the one who's affecting the dynamics of the holiday. I know I did that a lot before, and I don't want to do that now." So the struggle continues. If I had could go back, I wish I knew now what I knew then what I know now. But the first time I sat him down, I said, "Listen, your sister's coming home, and she's going to be here for 3 days, and whether you like it," I mean, that was I can't even imagine how jarring that was for the two of them. And just fingers crossed, we're hoping for some better holidays in the future. But that's kind of where we are with those dynamics. I don't hear a lot of folks who have this problem, but I hear it enough. I hear it enough. So initially, I felt like, most families, they do welcome back their addict, but I hear it enough now. For those of you who are in my shoes, we're not alone. Um, so just see if I think I covered what I thought I might be able to share tonight. And I'll pass it back to you, Kim.
Michelle, before you mute
Yeah.
yourself, there's a specific question to what you just talked about. So while it's fresh, the question is, do the younger girls feel guilt about supporting you to keep their sister out of the house for sleeping? I guess for staying there.
Do they feel guilty about that? No, I don't think so. I think they feel that finally, mom, remember up until Emily was a year and a half into recovery, I wasn't paying attention to their needs much at all. So I think they just feel grateful that they're getting a little bit of protection from their mom, from their scary experiences that wasn't happening at the time that the experiences were happening and didn't happen early on. I forced them to write letters to her when she was in rehab. They refused. I mean, they were telling me, they were giving me plenty of indications of how they felt or what they wanted. And I was shaded by my hope for getting this family mended. And that's not something I could push together. So I don't think they feel guilty. And I think that's simply because they needed to feel that I was giving them some protection. And so I think they might feel some gratitude for that. but not guilt.
I think there's something to be said for them expressing that they had boundaries, that's pretty remarkable actually for their tender ages that they were able to say, I'm not comfortable with this, rather than harboring a resentment that they weren't able to express.
Mhm.
And I just put in the chat, we have a page on our website dedicated to siblings, because this is such a really important topic. And you touched on so many things that I've heard over the years. I've experienced a bit of it ourselves, but yeah, it's really important. And I know you've worked so hard to try to navigate this as best as you can, but I appreciate you sharing and being so transparent. Thanks, Michelle.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Rob, so glad you're with us. Thank you so very much.
Yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. And yeah, thank you, Kim, Sherry, Michelle, everyone for having me. I greatly appreciate, the opportunity to come out and speak to you guys. So my name is Rob. I am a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 19th, 2021. So I'm about a hop, skip, and a jump over 3.5 years. Yeah, and I'll just share a little bit about what my experience was, what my struggle was, and then try to stay on the holidays topic, because that has definitely been I think for everybody. I think in general the holidays are just stressful for everyone. Regardless of how crazy your family is. They're going to be stressful for everybody. But adding the component of recovery, especially early recovery, into that. It is a very important time of year, and a very sensitive one. But yeah, so I'm 29. My addiction kind of took off when I was about 18, 19. I always experimented with like alcohol and marijuana, things like that. But I really started to get into daily drinking and daily marijuana use, and started to graduate to some harder substances as well. And as I got older, my addiction just continued to take off. And as I'm sure many of you can imagine, I was living with my parents at this time, and the relationship in the household just became more and more tumultuous. It was a constant thing, even when things were good, it was waiting for the other shoe to drop. When is Robert gonna total his next car? When are we gonna get another phone call from the police station? When is he going to tell us he's not going to work today because he just lost another job? It was constant, and the more things progressed, the harder that they got. And, throughout the years, the harder the holidays got. I know that there is absolutely, there has to be some very unpleasant memories for my mother, my father, and my brother of, it's Christmas Eve. Where's Robert? Where did he go? He was here 5 minutes ago and now he's gone. His car's not out front. Where did he go? And then coming back and having to hear my, malarkey excuses, just whatever I could pull out of my hat to, try to get one over on them. And then, having them know that I was lying the whole time. They knew exactly where I was and exactly what I was doing. And even on Christmas Eve, there were never days off for my addiction. I was going to have withdrawal symptoms regardless of what day of the year it was. Didn't matter if it was my birthday, dad's birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, at the dinner table, whatever. If I didn't have what I needed to feel normal. I felt like I couldn't be present anyway. But then when I was present, I was so under the influence or so whacked out, I wasn't really there. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for my parents to see that. My mom and my dad both grew up kind of like, I guess in a weird way, the oddballs in their family. All of their siblings struggled with drugs or alcohol. And they were the two in their family that did not, but they certainly carried the gene, and that is something that, like, I definitely think it affected how they tried to handle the early stages of my addiction. Because my dad, he saw, what his two brothers, like the chaos that they brought into his household growing up, and the amount of stress that they caused my grandfather. And he just swore up and down, when I get older and I have a family of my own, that is not going to be my household. My kids are not going to behave that way. There's not going to be any drugs, drinking, none of that. And to my dad's credit, he really tried his best. He really did. And so did my mom. Like I said, she came from an environment similar to that, where a lot of her brothers struggled with a lot of her brothers and sisters struggled with alcohol, and she did not, but she saw the calamity that it brought into the household. And again, she swore, not going to be my kids, not going to be my household. So when it happened to me, like when it started happening with me, I can only imagine how, like, their frustration and everything built. Having talked to my mom and dad, obviously, about it in the years that have gone by, what they kept telling themselves was it was just a phase. Okay, we'll deal with it, through this holiday season, but by next holiday season, hopefully he'll be better, and we can have a nice Christmas like we used to. And it just wasn't the case. It wasn't a snap of the finger type deal. After the holidays of 2017, so early 2018, right after I had gotten my first DUI, my mom started attending a family support group. And I'll be honest, I really, really resented her for that. Because, ultimately what she was saying was that I had a problem, before I was ever willing to admit that I had a problem. I think I knew it. I think she just knew it before I did, or was willing to admit it at least before I did. But, and thank God she joined that family support group, because 6 months later, I had gotten my second DUI, and I didn't know what to do, but I knew that I was sick of it and I was ready to get help. And when I said, the magic words to my mom, I need help, she knew exactly what to do. She leaned on her family support group. 2 days later, I was in treatment. Would have been the next day, but I put up a little bit of a fight. What are you going to do? But we got there, and and it hasn't been smooth sailing since then. I had a year and a half long relapse, which they were not aware about during the holiday season. Or maybe they were, I just really hadn't, fessed up to it. But, the past few holidays have been great. And my first holiday in recovery, it was really, I'll be honest, it was really just fantastic. It was almost like my family was just grateful to have me back. I went to a Christmas party with distant relatives that, I never saw because, like Sherry talked about, like the family parties of how you doing? I don't really want to talk about how I'm doing. I'm not doing good. And I don't want to lie to you and say that, yeah, I'm on my 6th job this year, but it looks promising, so it's definitely a struggle. Make sure I'll go over here. Yeah, it's definitely a struggle. And navigating early on, and then going to those holiday parties again, and kind of reappearing or reintroducing yourself as somebody who's just trying to get their life together. And I heard mentioned earlier too, social media early on, especially. I think it was very difficult for me not to compare my experience and my family's experience to the experience of others online. And, to kind of echo what was said before me, every family has their problems. I work in, I have the privilege of working for a treatment center now, and I get to talk to family members and individuals struggling with addiction on a daily basis. And, a lot of time, I mean, those phone calls are very difficult. There's a lot of shame on both sides, the family and the patient. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of, confusion, and there's a lot of wishing my family wasn't like this, or, I heard from so-and-so that I should do this. And, what I'll just say to any family members that have been getting a lot of different advice or a lot of different opinions is, everyone has an opinion on how to handle a situation until they are faced with it directly and have to deal with it themselves. And what I would say is seek out the right support. Don't be afraid to reach out and seek out resources, because, thankfully we live in a time now where that stigma is already starting to be lifted, or it's been being lifted quite a bit, and there are resources out there, and sometimes it is just as simple as a Google search. And that's why I appreciate the opportunity to come speak here. I mean, because I know how much organizations like this helped my mom and continue to help my mom to this day. Holidays now are great. Life today, as I like to say, is beyond my wildest dreams. I have an apartment of my own. I got 2 cats, and honestly, at age 29, the route that I was going with the substances that I was using, and just the calamity of my life, the chaos of it, I don't think I would have made it to 29. I can say that pretty certainly that I wouldn't have. And it's been such an honor to be a part of a program that has selflessly gifted me so much and has been there for me during times like the holidays, or just through other difficult things in my life, breakups, other holidays, friends in the program that have gone out, which is very difficult to deal with, changing jobs. It's just great to have such a solid support system. And, during the holidays, especially, it is crucial. What I like to tell, because I have had the privilege of, sponsoring some men in the program, and, or just, giving advice, or just talking with other people in the program. And the program I'm referring to is Alcoholics Anonymous. I apologize. I've been in AA for 3.5 years. They've helped me get sober. But that's what works for me. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but, that is the support system that I have leaned on. And it's paid off, dividends. I was going somewhere with that. Okay, yeah. Sorry, this is what I was going to say. So my support system, what they always hammer home for me is have a plan in place. My first time going to a bar in a casual setting when I was sober. The holidays, birthdays, going over to old friends' houses that I haven't seen since I've gotten sober. Family parties, all that jazz, just having an escape plan. And the way it was explained to me is, because my big thing is, which is kind of funny because I'm Irish, but I'm not a big fan of the Irish goodbye. I'm someone that has to walk around and give everybody a hug and let them know I love them. And then I'm going to see them again real soon. A big sappy guy like that. But, part of that is okay, I don't want to just leave and be rude and da-da-da-da-da. Early on, especially, we are still figuring out our feelings. We cannot worry about everyone else's feelings in those moments. So, if you have a loved one who's in recovery, what I always say is, early on, especially, have an escape plan. And anybody who does not understand why you have to leave, or doesn't understand why, you have to go to that meeting, or you have to, step out and take that phone call from your sponsor, or call, your therapist, sober support network, whatever it may be. Whoever doesn't understand that it's not their fault necessarily, but they're in that moment not necessarily the most beneficial, person to talk to about your recovery. You have to do what's best for you early on, because all of that goes away. the family parties, the welcome backs, the welcoming back from mom and dad, the joy in everyone's face that they're happy to see you're healthy and doing well. All of that goes away the second we pick up our drug or a drink, because it's right back to the chaos, the calamity. It can't be around, and it's just, it's brutal, and, while I don't wish it on anybody, I'm grateful that I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic today. I mean, it's helped me. It's helped shape who I am, and it's made my relationship with my mom and my dad extremely strong, and my brother too. Just knowing that. I mean, I'm sure they still worry about me. I'm not a parent yet. I can't, pretend like I know. I know what that's like. But they, they. Our relationship is so strong now where I'm around them, and I don't feel like any sort of pressure if there is alcohol around. I don't feel like I have to walk on eggshells around them, and vice versa, which is really great. I mean, we had the uncomfortable conversations early on where I'm like, Mom, like, why aren't you having a glass of wine with dinner? Like, why wouldn't you? Is it because of me? And she's like, hey, Robert, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't mind having a glass of water instead. Like, to you, it's a big deal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure if the way, what I always say is, if I wasn't an alcoholic, I'd have a beer right now, because that's just the way that my mind works, but them being understanding and respecting my boundaries, we did have, those uncomfortable conversations. And I was big on, I don't want the spotlight on me. If you're going to have booze around, just have it around. I'll have my escape plan. But that's something that just kind of, for my situation, worked itself out. We did have a conversation about it. Boundaries were respected. And, now I'm at a point in my recovery, thank God. And, God willing, this continues, where I don't obsess over the thought of alcohol anymore. I don't think about having a drink. I can be around alcohol, and it doesn't drive me nuts like it used to, and I'm very grateful for that. But I'm also not naive enough to think that I am cured, or that I am impervious to cravings, or impervious to fleeting thoughts. So again, I think it's very important to have a plan of action. If it is something that is sensitive in your family, have a plan of action before you go to that family party, or before they even come, even if it's something low key for the holidays, have a plan of action in place, before they come over for the holidays. But I don't want to go over too much. I really appreciate, the time you folks allowed me to speak, and, the opportunity, and I'll pass it back over to Kim.
Okay, Rob, don't mute yourself yet, because I have a question for you. Thank you. You touched on so many great things. Wow, that was really awesome. We've talked a lot about alcohol, and of course it is ubiquitous. It is, you cannot turn on the television, certainly can't watch a sports event, any of that kind of stuff without getting bombarded. But, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but cannabis, the smell is everywhere. We talked to so many school districts with prevention programs where the educators are telling us, well, the big challenge is the parents are smoking it. So it's around not just with kids or the young people, but it's really the average cannabis user, heavy user is 35 years old. So, do you experience that? Not necessarily the holidays, but I'm just thinking about triggering things. We've talked so much about alcohol being triggering.
Sure.
How do you feel about that in the ether kind of thing that we're all experiencing now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is everywhere. I went to see a Jerry Seinfeld show with my dad about a year ago, and he even made a joke. He's like, I'm walking around Philly. It smells like weed everywhere. But it is. I mean, it really is. It's everywhere. And, when I say alcohol, that's kind of just from being like in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I really do mean like all substances. I struggled with alcohol, marijuana, amphetamines, benzodiazepines, pretty much you name it. But to answer your question, I mean, same thing, just having boundaries. It is everywhere now, and it is almost like a novelty, because it is such a big thing that it's so legal and so easily accessible. Do I struggle with it personally? I mean, yeah. I mean, it's difficult to walk around and smell it everywhere. But like I said, I similar with the alcohol. It's not something that, and if you're in recovery too, I mean, it's not something you should try to hide from because it's going to present itself one way or another eventually, and when you don't expect it to. But just having a plan of action. I mean, if you're not a family that talks, plan something for the holidays where, weed is not right around the corner. Like maybe go to a movie or something. You can't smoke in the movie theater. Just have ideas like that, or just think about things like that you and your family would enjoy doing that. Don't put those thoughts or impulses at risk. And it can be hard to determine exactly what that is. But again, I think that's where the benefit of a support system comes in for sure. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of just touch on that because we and I know what you're saying when you're in that 12-step program, you talk about alcohol and it's ubiquitous term for substances. But no, I just wanted to bring that up because I'm certainly hyper aware now that every time we walk out of our office in Ardmore, we get clobbered in the face with smell, and it's just like it makes me, feel a lot of sympathy for folks who are struggling with that as their substance of choice. That it can be challenging. I really want to get folks checking in with us, so I'm going to stop the recording now.